You know, technology giveth and it taketh away. And so I'm a musicologist at this point in my career, not only being a musicologist, but also being someone who has enjoyed being on top of technology instead of being dictated to by technology. And that's two different things. You know, either you be on top of technology or it will be on top of you. And it's been always a trick for the industry at hand to try to turn many people who love music to just reduce them to consumers. And once consumption at a price becomes the end-all be-all to the industry of something I think is greatly organic, then it's bound to have side effects. And what the industry has always been trying to patch a hole onto is the side effects that have happened from neglect, greed, not being able to share the same space with the people that enjoy music. So I think, you know, some of that chicken is coming home to roost.
And let's talk about it a little bit. You were an early supporter of the internet. I mean, I think I personally got a call from your Minister of Information in 1994 or 95, and you guys were already on. You know, really, the internet was on your radar at that point. And I would also argue that, you know, you were maybe too early, right? You were one of the pioneers that got.
There's no such thing as too early.
Okay, well,
you know, we followed the steps of Grand Royale, you know, who you worked with, you know, for years, and the Beastie Boys had the first website, BeastieBoys.com.
Thank you.
And in 1996. I had looked at the same system and said, you know, here I am, part of a trade, and what would it mean? The trade Def Jam was with Sony, and they were in the red, but I was in the black, right? No pun intended, no big pun intended. And then they made a deal with Polygram to get back into the black for some, crazy amount of money. And I was in a building that I wasn't familiar with, saying, well, yeah, my job is to make an album, but then I found out I had all these people I didn't know, so I create an album. I have a dictated budget given down to me that's really controlled by somebody else, so it's like, yeah, we're paying you this advance in lieu of us dictating how it's spent, with you making a percentage being able to be recouped on your percentage rate that we give you. So I'm like, so I deliver a record to this corporation, and then I said, well, you know, I got all these barriers at this corporation trying to say, well, you could do this, and here's a video that you did, but it has to be for this amount, and make sure you blur out the logos. Some crap I never got to understand. It's like, what I got to do with the New York Mets logo at MTV? That's you guys' problem. I'm an artist. I know my people like this. I want to put my logo in, and simple as that, take it. Oh, well, no, because MTV won't play our other videos. The hell do I care about the other videos? So I faced these obstacles in the mid-'90s with the company that I'm signed to, and I said, there's got to be a better way. Because I know that I can get to people that love my music in Africa, and although they say that in their contract, the territories are the world and the universe, and I always try to figure what the fuck that means. It means if I get to Venus first, you still have the rights to distribute my music when you can't get there. The same thing works with the territories here. You know, I was able to get to places that are not, not major record company territories, like South America and Africa and a lot of those areas on the southern end of the equator that they can't get to, that I have hundreds and thousands of people that listen to the music. So that began to spark a little plug in my head saying, look, I want to go person to person. Later on, it became peer to peer. No middle situation involved because they can't do it. And I wanted them to do it before, and they got the so-called rights contractually, but they could not fulfill. So I need a direct way. And so in the process of MP3, we was on the first new music seminar panel, and I said, well, this looks good, .com, you know, and I wanted to get into the digital age with a vengeance. I foresaw television being in that realm. It's just that at that particular time, there was no way to get something that was considered a big digital file across things that were considered cable wires or telephone.
And that's what I meant by too early. You guys were with Atomic Pop, which was one of the, I don't know if folks know, was the very first digital-only label that I know of.
It's not too early. As long as the facts are there and the history is there, it's not too early.
Yeah,
now, if the facts aren't known and the history
saying,
ain't there, you know, then it's too early.
People couldn't get those files, though. You know, so it was you had exactly the you were exactly the right idea, probably earlier than the fans could get that from you. So you saw that vision, though. And do you think that how much of that? Where are we then in that original vision that you saw? How much of it has come true, or do we still have a distance to go?
Well, through our aggregation system, Spit Digital, which is like one of the first urban aggregation, meaning distributed systems in the digital realm, since I helped the Orchard in their beginnings and then also TuneCore in their beginnings, and we decided to build our own in 2011 and getting our acceptance in 2012. When we released an album this summer, I woke up on our release date, went to my phone, pressed a couple buttons, got the album. So, and then we said, we're going to release another album in October. So I woke up, went to my phone, asked my wife for permission, first of all. Just try not to be on the phone too much. Pressed a couple buttons, got the album. Big difference than 3 years ago. And this is a paradigm which I think is very open for the artist that wants to become their own situation. Big difference from 3 years ago. The biggest difference is pads and phones and smartphones. And I saw that coming 5 years ago at MIDEM, where MIDEM is a big conference internationally, usually held in Nice, France, where people come and convene about music and music companies and distribution of music. And 6 years ago, all the major phone companies were there talking about distribution of content. And that is echoed from the software to the hardware. So that's where we're at right now. It's like if people want something, they can get it. That doesn't mean that you become lazy and you take it for granted. And also we start looking at music as being an afterthought. Music is still just, or I should say artistry and culture is the thing that you have to kind of salute and respect the most out of all this.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. At that MIDEM, I saw you speak, and you have my favorite quote of maybe any MIDEM I've ever been to. Chuck said, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, people talking about the problems with the music business, and Chuck said, there's not a problem with the music business, there's a problem with the CD business. And now you're saying, again, coming back to the music. But at the same time, you were one of the earliest supporters of P2P. You were one of the most outspoken artists, it's going head-to-head, literally, with Lars from Metallica.
Hillary Rosen, RIA.
Saying, hey, this is a great thing. Now, it seems to me what you're saying right now about remembering the value of music, do you think the value of music, and in particular recorded music, has gone below what you had wanted it to? Or is it just part of a bigger business that includes lots of other things?
First of all, I would like to say that we're in a multi-faceted artistry era where when MTV came along in 1981, it was the beginning of sight over sound, meaning that people would say, well, we were in an audio-visual age. Well, that was the turning point at that time where we started to go into a visual audio age. If you ask a lot of young people, 25 years and under, a lot of music means something that they saw first and they heard second. And when I was growing up, the flip on it is that people talked about something that they heard first, because the presentation came as an audio file. And then they followed up by saying, the enhancement of that is watching the Ed Sullivan Show and American Bandstand and Soul Train when it came down to black music, being able to talk about seeing something that they heard first. Well, when music television came along, it flipped it. Not overnight, but it usually takes a 10-year period before something becomes into the norm and becomes the rule as opposed to exception. And that's when it became a visual audio business. And people respond like, I saw it at first. And so if they heard it on the radio, it's usually something that people saw first. So for the first time at the turn of this century, you had a schism of two different generations that looked at music differently or heard music differently. Hearing it first, seeing it afterwards was something that related to my generation. Seeing it first and hearing it afterwards is something that related to younger generations, and this created a gap that the industry just could not handle. I'm a big fan of Jack Holtzman, and Jack Holtzman is the founder of Elektra Records, a technologist as well as a musicologist. And he says it quite clearly. If the major record companies didn't attack Napster at the turn of the century and embrace them as being a vehicle for delivering singles, they would have actually progressed as an industry, because the CD was a cumbersome way to distribute singles. They already found a way to distribute albums, but it was no way to justify the same round disc giving you one song as opposed to 10. So they had a whole lot of these mistakes in the industry that really wasn't based on any kind of logic other than, well, we made a lot of money at it, so let's keep doing it until we don't make any more money at it. And eventually, it hit a wall and became a desert. But I would say in the digital age, the key is, yes, it is a desert, but now the key is how to survive as an industry or as artistry, surviving like a cactus. A cactus exists in a desert because it's able to reach down with a different set of roots and absorb whatever comes down. And so a lot of times when artists say, all right, I'm doing my art, but I can't make a living at it. And I say, yes, you can. You don't judge it by any other standard but your own. And to look at the number one as being the principle that you're able to operate your artistry into some kind of craft, into some kind of business, is a very important thing. How do you go within the one? Because we have the same analog type of conversation like, well, I got to sell 213,769 like I did in 1992 when I was signed to, Rough Trade or whatever. And that's an analog conversation from another century. Now, count your blessings. Count how many come in, and then how do you treat the numbers that actually come in a little bit differently than looking down at a number, counting what you didn't have as opposed to what you did have. That's where we are right now. It's a flip side of the analog world, which was run by accountants and lawyers at a big industry salesperson type of way. So here we are. Each and every artist out there can make a living at their art, but it will give you actually the map as opposed to you just drawing out the map. It will tell you whether you can leave your job or not, your day job or not. It will tell you, but you got to go within anybody that comes to your craft and treat it like a painter in a gallery would treat a painting. They don't have stacks trying to move 15 at a time. They look at the person that comes to them and they have a conversation about it before they can actually make the sale. And this is where your albums, your songs are in your gallery, your digital gallery. It's like, what conversation do you have to the person that has bought into your music? And do you just say, here's a sale and be gone? Or do you keep them engaged with your artistry? And this is where it's on you to actually engage upon the people that dig you first, and don't treat them like an aftermath like the old music industry did when they like, there's 213,000. We don't know who they are, but they suckered and they bought it, and we'll try to get them next time by doing the same marketing, by throwing it against the wall and seeing if they love it. That's gone. That is over.